Hi and welcome to ADHD in the Wild. This is the last of 3 lives that I've been doing for ADHD Awareness Month. And this time I'm going to be talking about medication for ADHD, other treatments, other types of support for adults with ADHD. So I'm AJ Harman. I'm doing these lives to kind of show up and show what ADHD in an adult can look like, to raise awareness of how it presents in adults, and to bust, maybe some of those myths and stereotypes that people think of. So in this one, as I said, we're going to look at treatments and support. And probably one of the first things that people think of when they think of ADHD and treatments is medication. So first of all, I'm just going to explain a little bit of what I've learned about the neurobiology of ADHD so we can understand how the medication actually works. So ADHD is affected by the levels and the activity of chemical messengers, in the brain. So that is neurotransmitters such as dopamine and noradrenaline, which is also norepinephrine in the States. So research is still ongoing. Scientists don't know exactly which neurotransmitter is at the real heart of it, or whether it's just a kind of combination. But there's a pathway that goes from dopa to dopamine, and then that becomes noradrenaline. So they don't really know whether it's kind of a lack of dopa, a lack of dopamine, or a lack of noradrenaline. But they just know that this pathway is mainly what's involved. So with medication, you've got 2 basic types. You've got stimulants. An example of a stimulant, and the one that I'm on, is lisdexamfetamine. And the way that type of medication works is to cause the brain to actually create more noradrenaline. And then non-stimulants, an example of that is atomoxetine. They actually cause noradrenaline to be broken down more slowly. So the overall effect of both of them is that there's more of these chemical signals in the brain, but they just work in slightly different ways. And which one you go on, if you're deciding to go on medication, which one you go on, depends on a whole host of factors, and they might depend on your overall health. So the person who's prescribing should take into account things like, for instance, if you have heart problems or high blood pressure or anything like that, then stimulants probably aren't for you, because they do raise the heart rate and can cause problems if you have a heart condition or anything like that. So things like that will be taken into account, any sort of other pre-existing conditions and things like that. With stimulants, you don't have to kind of have a build-up. So you don't have to take them every single day. That can be a benefit, obviously, when you've got ADHD. I know a lot of people who forget to take medication. So that's one good advantage of stimulant medication. The non-stimulants, you do have to kind of be taking it every day. So that's a slight disadvantage from that point of view. There are some antidepressants that are sometimes used as well, because another chemical signal in the brain is through serotonin. A lot of the antidepressants actually act on that, and that can be benefit as well. So things like bupropion might be prescribed. Sometimes a combination. So I have an antidepressant and ADHD meds. And that seemed, you know, the level of that of those two together seemed to be perfect. Overall, it's thought that 80% of people react well to medication and function well on medication. But obviously there's 20, that means 20% of people where it doesn't work for them. So it's not for everybody. And, you know, obviously there's a whole range of other things that people take into account. Some people just don't want to be on medication. So we will look at other things that you can do instead of medication as well. But just to say that if you do try medication, you will go through a process that's called titration, which is basically just getting you on the right drug and at the right dose for you. And what they'll be looking for is for the benefits to outweigh any kind of side effects. So it's a real balance. And usually they'll start on a low dose and slowly increase it until they can see, you know, if you get to a point where the side effects are worse, and you kind of go back down. And sometimes, you know, if the particular medication you try at first doesn't work, that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, no medication is going to work for you. It may just mean you need to be on a different one. And so they'll try you on a different one, and then you go through the dosage till you get it right. So that's the process of titration. Just say hello. I can see Ronnie's here. Hi, Ronnie and Angie. Oh, great for you to join me live. Right, so I've got one person saying hi, and it says Facebook user. And the reason for that is because this time, hopefully, to get rid of those problems that we've been having with the sort of syncing of the picture and the sound, is I'm going live via StreamYard. Oh, Steph, is it Anna who's because I can just see Facebook user. So basically, if you go to Steph, do you know what the link is for StreamYard? I think it's StreamYard.com Facebook, something like that. And basically, if you go there, you just need to give StreamYard permission to show your. Oh, great! Thanks, Steph. Great. Hi, Anna. Thank you for joining us live. Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't already, if you go to there we go. Steph's put it in the comments. If you go there, it's not kind of doing anything bad. It's literally just giving StreamYard permission to show me your name, and I can just. It's nice to be able to see your picture and the name and everything. Yeah, sometimes I've had where I've been on other people's lives and I have already given StreamYard permission like a while ago, and I've had to go and just do it again for some reason. But anyway, so looking at other treatments, there's a whole host of other things as well apart from medication. So coaching and executive function training. So that's the kind of stuff that I do with my clients. So coaching can be really useful, especially with regard to things like emotional regulation. That's one of the traits with ADHD is it's, you know, really hard to regulate our emotions. And so coaching can really help with that. Also, learning exactly what your triggers are. And how you can maybe avoid those or, you know, kind of work around those in the future. And also just kind of undoing all those years of conditioning that we've all had. You know, I know so many people with ADHD who've kind of been told all their life, you know, that they're too loud, too much, too chatty, or lazy. You know, all these different things that we've kind of absorbed as we're growing up, especially if we weren't aware of ADHD and exactly what the traits are. So coaching can really help, you know, unlock a lot of that stuff and kind of peel away the layers and help you find who you really are inside. Another aspect to what I do is and kind of think of it as executive function training, or sometimes it's called coping strategy training. And that's specific kind of practical things for working around the challenges that you might have, especially at work or in your business or anything like that. Sort of, you know, problems that you might have with time management or organising things, planning and prioritising, paying attention when you kind of need to, all those sorts of things. And that is kind of, you know, just learning various strategies, trying different things to find the things that really work for you. Some types of therapy are useful, again, especially if, you know, a lot of neurodivergent people actually have quite a level of trauma, which is, you know, aside from anything else, obviously there are people that have even deeper levels of trauma. But there's an argument to say that even just being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world gives a kind of a trauma all of its own, because of never feeling like you completely fit in, or that you can't keep up with the people around you. You think there's something kind of wrong with you. So therapy like CBT or DBT can be helpful. Then there are things like mindfulness and meditation and tapping and things like that. Things that will just help calm the nervous system, maybe stop those racing thoughts and things that we have, and kind of worries and rumination, and sort of help you to still the mind. Again, it's not for everybody. Some people really can't get on with meditation. It's worth remembering that you can do sort of active meditation as well. So that might be doing something like running or going for a walk out in nature and things like that, where you're doing something physical, but you're still in the mind at the same time, or, you know, concentrating on that particular exercise or that particular activity that you're doing in that moment, that can kind of block some of those other things out. And exercise itself can do a lot, because it does stimulate dopamine in the brain. It's been shown. So, you know, again, and I know it can be something that some of us really find hard, I'm talking about myself here, to fit into the routine on a regular basis. But it really, you know, it has been shown that regular exercise several times a week is going to really help with the ADHD. Sometimes it's just kind of getting rid of that excess energy as well. Things like fidget toys and so on. I mean, I've got my fidget spinner here, but I also tend to use things like I've got different crystals and things that I can just, while I'm doing things, I can just kind of turn them around in my hand, ring on my finger. I just keep turning, especially when I'm in, you know, meetings or trying to concentrate on what somebody's saying. Fiddling with things like that can kind of really help with attention. Breathing exercises are good. The cold water training. So a group of us have been doing, we're sort of in week 4 now of a 20-day cold shower challenge. And Wim Hof, whose method that is kind of based on, I believe he has ADHD himself. And, you know, the effect of cold water is, can be really kind of stimulating, but calming in a strange way as well. But it sort of, helps kind of wake up the brain, especially if you've got brain fog and all that kind of thing. Then nutrition, there's a lot that you can do just through the things that you eat, and also supplements and things like that. So apparently a high protein diet is really good in ADHD. And again, I think that's because it feeds into this pathway that I was talking about with the chemical signals, because amino acids are part of that, which are what makes up proteins. There's a lot of evidence to show that gut-friendly bacteria are really important as well. And then supplements. So supplements that I know about, and, you know, please put in the chat if you know about this and you know of other ones. But the ones I know are really helpful. Tyrosine which again is an amino acid, and so it goes into making up these chemical signals that we need in ADHD. Vitamin D is really important, and omega-3 fatty acids as well. So I think, just checking through my notes, make sure I don't forget anything. I think that's it for those things. One other thing I wanted to mention that helped me enormously as soon as I found out about my ADHD and my autism was finding other people, kind of finding my tribe. I went to all sorts of different communities, neurodivergent communities, on social media and things like that. And, all these different groups and communities tend to have their own kind of energy, and they do differ from each other quite a lot. So I think it's a case of finding one that really matches yours and, the type of people that you feel comfortable with, that you can share. A big thing with ADHD, especially if we have had that kind of trauma and we've, had a lot of negative criticism and things like that. And, you can feel very lonely. And I think as soon as you find other people that you realise are just like you, and have, you can share your stories and you can share advice and you can just feel like you're not alone anymore. That's so important. So, yeah, I thought I just wanted to say something about accommodations as well at work. So, if you're at work, or obviously if you're in your own business, then you can think about some of these things and adapting your working environment to really help you. But if you're an employee, what kind of things could help to tell your employer about, or to get support with? Some of the things that I've identified, and again, if you've got anything that that you want to add to this, please pop it in the comments. Oh, and by the way, I meant to say as well, if you're watching live, just put #live. And if you're watching on the replay, welcome. Just put #replay, and then afterwards I can kind of look, I can see who's been watching, and I can see any comments or questions you might have. So accommodations. One of the main things is, for really effective working, is to have a distraction-free environment if you possibly can. So, that might be, if you're working in a busy office, if there's any way that you can, have a quieter space, or that you can be allowed to, say, wear headphones, or, some people work better actually with music and things like that. So it might be being allowed to have headphones with your own music on. Deadlines are a really big thing. The things that I've talked about before that really help with ADHD and getting tasks done are interest and urgency. So if you're really, really interested in something, you can hyper-focus for hours, you can get a task done without any problem, and you might really enjoy it. And if the interest isn't there, it's going to be a real struggle. The other thing that can motivate us is a deadline. And we can get loads done in a short amount of time if we know that we've got a deadline. And the worst thing is when there's no interest in something and you haven't got a tight deadline, or a very specific kind of time to have it done. You can kind of procrastinate for hours. It's really hard to get started on something. So it's really good if your employer can be aware of that, or your line manager, or whatever, whoever's given you tasks to do, to really break them down. Sometimes as well, we can be really overwhelmed with a massive task that just feels impossible to do. So if it's really broken down into lots of subtasks, and each one of those given a deadline, that can help us get through things. Acceptance of things like fidget toys and, things that we can use to kind of keep our hands busy, that actually help us to concentrate. Not a lot of people realise that. They think, they're not paying attention. Well, actually, it's helping to pay attention, especially in meetings and things like that. If you're sort of just having to sit and stare at the person on the screen and listen, it can be really, really hard. But if you've got something, to keep your hands occupied or whatever, it can help. The ability to move around and take regular breaks, that's really important. It can help with our concentration to take regular breaks. Obviously, the Pomodoro technique is great for that, where you set a timer for, say, 25 minutes. I think I normally find with my work that something like 45 minutes is ideal for me. So 45 minutes, and then I take a break for 5 or 10. Yeah, and actually getting up and moving around. And also, if you're struggling with paying attention, move to a different place to do the work. So if that was a possibility within the workplace, you know, that might actually help. Reduced number and length of meetings, I'm sure we'd all benefit from that, but that's a good thing to say. Clear expectations of what people need from us and when, and especially if it's put in writing, like in an email, rather than just told to us where we might not remember it, or we might not remember the details. Preferably one request at a time as well. You know, it's well known that if you kind of ask someone to do a couple of things, they might only remember the last thing that you told them, for instance. And acceptance of flexible working hours as well, that can be so helpful. If you're working from home, you know, the acknowledgement that you might answer an email or do a piece of work, say later at night, that's actually a great thing, because you've got, that might be the best time that you're able to concentrate on work. Some people, you know, it's the mornings. You know, I particularly find it difficult in the afternoons sometime, you know, sort of early afternoons. So it helps to have a break then, and then do work again a bit later on. That's another accommodation that can be really, really helpful within the workplace. Right, how are we doing? Yeah, so I'm only going to mention this one really briefly, because I think I'm going to do a whole live on this, and probably it will be the next one as well. I'm going to do something on access to work funding. So I think it's getting more and more known about now, but a lot of people don't know anything about this. It's a government scheme that gives you funding if you're neurodivergent, or you have like a disability, physical disability, a mental health issue, anything like that, you're eligible to apply for if you're in work or you have your own business. And you kind of get assessed for exactly what your needs are, what your challenges are at work or in your business, what kind of support would really help you, and then they they give you a report, and you can get various different things. So from like a support worker, like Steph is for me, or and a coach, and Anna, who, if she's still here, is my coach. And then all sorts of things, like I've just got this great desk. You won't be able to see it. I'm patting it, but it's a sit-stand desk, so it's electronic, and I just press a button and it goes to a preset height that I've put in, and that's what I'm standing now at this desk. But then I can put it down and I can sit, and it just helps me move around. All sorts of software, mind mapping software I've got. Brain in Hands, that is another brilliant thing that I will do a whole live on. Yeah, there's a whole range of different things that can be really helpful and you can get from access to work. And if you're self-employed, you will get 100% of the funding. If you're employed, your employer pays 20%, and then access to work pay for the other 80%. So I think, and the other thing I was just going to, I think I mentioned briefly on the kind of advert for this, where I just thought it'd be quite fun to think about some of those famous ADHDers. And I think there's a lot of speculation about all sorts of people kind of in hindsight. So, the one I see a lot of is Einstein, people like that, Leonardo da Vinci and things. But obviously, ADHD wasn't around. Excuse me. ADHD wasn't around kind of when they were. So it's just kind of with hindsight that people are looking back and saying, well, I think they did. But there's lots of famous people kind of now who are diagnosed. And again, I mean, I won't go through everybody, but I'll mention some of them. And if there's anyone you particularly know, it'd be really interesting to see if there's anyone that I didn't realise. But there's people like Russell Brand, Emma Watson, Zooey Deschanel, Paris Hilton, Solange Knowles, Jim Carrey, Ryan Gosling, I hadn't realised until recently, Will Smith, Justin Timberlake, will.i.am, Richard Branson is quite a famous one, Steve Jobs, I believe. There's quite a few kind of comedians, which is interesting. So I've mentioned Russell Brand, Rory Bremner, Richard Bacon, Rod Gilbert, and Josie Long. So if there's anybody else that you know of, it's always interesting to find out who the celebrities are that have ADHD, and it can be really helpful. It's useful to realise, it kind of normalises it, doesn't it, when we realise that people who are successful and in the public eye and do great things have ADHD. So as I mentioned, next week's live, that will be at the same time at 1 o'clock. Obviously, it won't be ADHD Awareness Month then. So the next few lives I'm going to be going, over other neurodivergencies and things like that. But the first one I think I will do on access to work funding, because I get so many people asking me about that. So that would be good. So I think the main thing is to remind you, and I know got this ticker tape thing going underneath me which says about it, but on Monday I'm starting a series of just 3 mini masterclasses, I guess. So there'll be Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday evening. They'll only be for about an hour and a half, and if you can't make them live, I think I'll be going from 7 to 7 to 8 or 8:30, depending, how we get on. And I've not done them before, so it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. And if anybody has, if there are questions and interaction and everything as part of it, then it might go to the hour and a half. But yeah, if you can't make it live, the recordings will be in the group, so you'll be able to catch up on those. But you will need to register because it's a separate group. It's not just in my Explorations Outside the Box group. There's a special group set up. I know some people have already requested to join the group. So just to say that it's actually opening on Sunday, just before the day before the first one. And then I'll kind of let everybody in and we can have a little bit of interaction and everything beforehand and get to know each other. And then the first one will start on Monday, the 24th, I believe, 24th, 25th and 26th. And Steph's put the link in the chat. Thank you, Steph, for signing up to that. So does anybody have any questions before I go? I can see Angie saying, so glad you're doing one on access to work. Oh, yes, that is interesting. I'll try and look in. So you're an agency worker. I will see if I can find out anything about that and what happens when you're an agency worker. So presumably you're not classed as self-employed, or would you be classed as self-employed as an agency worker? Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Any other questions? Let's have a look. Or comments. Just scroll back through. Yeah. So I've gone a bit quiet. I'm kind of still reading the comments. Yeah, do you know what? So Anna, it looks like you weren't able to get StreamYard. I've seen that very occasionally, that somebody can't get StreamYard to recognise their name. but most of the time it seems to work. Yeah, so Steph has loads of fidget toys and crystals, tiny mushroom shape. Resist the urge to pop it in my nose and shoot it around the room like a tiny pellet of positivity. That's brilliant. Oh, CBD. Oh, yeah. Lots of people have said about CBD helping. And how do you pronounce that? Ashwagandha? I've heard people say about that as well. I've not used it myself. But yeah, Steph uses Focus Mate, which is, oh yeah, that is another great thing actually. Body doubling is really, really good for getting tasks done. So that's where you're either in the same room as someone, both working on your own things, or you can do it live via Zoom and things like that. And it does help you just to focus on what you're doing. It's kind of like, it's almost like, somebody else is there, so you've got to concentrate and do it. Oh yeah, Ronnie. So at school, friend has. Oh, what's? Oh, so she has her tests separately. Is that what you mean by that? Yeah, my daughter as well has. She's got accommodations from the exam board that she can be in a separate room just with a few other students who also, have accommodations for one reason or another, instead of a massive, hall of hundreds of students. That helps her. And also you can get an extension on the time, because sometimes you just get really overwhelmed by the task in front of you, and it takes a while just to sort out your thoughts and actually get going, or reading through the paper and things like that, especially the more nervous you are. So those things are really helpful. Oh, that's interesting, Angie. Yes. Do you know what? Lots of neurodivergencies do have links with sort of conditions to do with the digestive system. There's also, I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if it's just like a heightened sensitivity and stimulated, often overstimulated nervous system, and that affects it. But yeah, there's a lot of digestive things that are to do with that, and they are finding out that there's a lot of things to do with gut bacteria, making sure that you've got lots of the good gut bacteria and not so much of the bad. Oh, I love the idea of a standing desk, but my fatigue wouldn't let me work for more than 5 minutes. Yeah, it does. And actually, when I've been here for a while, I'm finding it a little bit tiring. But one thing is, I was just saying to Steph earlier that when I'm working on things like my editorial work or anything like that, I found it so good to have music on in the background, like quite kind of upbeat music, and have it at the standing height and work like that. And I'm actually kind of, dancing away, jigging away, and it really helps me. Yeah, Jim Carrey. Yeah, that didn't surprise me either, about Jim Carrey, or Will.i.am and people like that. Sjogren's syndrome. Is that, Anna? Is that what you've got? Sjogren's syndrome, autoimmune thing where my body doesn't make necessary fluids like saliva, tears, gastric juices, etc. Messes with digestion. Yeah, but it does. And there's all sorts of conditions, aren't there, that go hand in hand with ADHD and autism and things like that. Yes, so access to work can support you if you work for an employer. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I can kind of share some of the sort of the things I've heard about for access to work. The things that, obviously I'm not employed by somebody else, but I've got all sorts of things via access to work. Great. Okay, so if nobody's got any more questions, I will end here, and I'll see you all again next week. And hopefully I'll see some of you in the masterclasses. I'm really excited, slightly nervous because I've never done anything like this before, but actually doing these lives is helping me a lot, kind of work up to that. And that you know, that was part of why I wanted to start doing this, because you know, I can't get these messages out or help people or you know, kind of share a lot of this stuff if I don't actually, you know, come along and do it. You know, just get on and do it. But it's a lot easier knowing I can just come along and do it as me, and actually I'll be accepted, and you know, I'm not going to be judged for forgetting what I'm saying in the middle of it or having to look at my notes and all that kind of thing. So thank you so much for everyone's support. And oh, great. So someone says they're booked onto the masterclasses, but again, it says Facebook user, so I can't tell. I'll show you. If I click here, it comes up. So you can see that I can't see who it is, and it just says Facebook user. But if you get, if you give StreamYard permission, or if it will allow you to, if it's Anna by any chance, or someone else who's tried and it's not allowed them. Oh, it's Janet. Brilliant. Hi, Janet. Hope you're well. That'll be brilliant. I can't wait to see you and see anybody else. It's really exciting. Just hope I don't forget everything that I want to do. Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to end there, and I will see you next time. Bye.